Welcome to the channel. It's a pleasure to have you here. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing so you never miss an update. I'd also love to know where you're joining us from. Share your city or country in the comments below. It's always exciting to see our community grow across the world. I pulled into the Stop and Go parking lot 15 minutes before my shift, noticing a blue sedan parked badly across two spots, the new hire. Management had told me yesterday that I'd be training someone tonight. The door opened and out came a young guy with messy hair and a wrinkled uniform shirt. One hand held his phone, the other carried a big energy drink. As a single mom of 2 kids, I couldn't afford to mess up this job. Stop and Go paid almost twice what other stores in Riverdale offered, which meant I could feed my kids and even save a little each month. Of course, there was a reason the pay was higher, though you'd never see that explained in the job ad. The new hire walked toward me with an easy grin, holding out his hand as I stepped out of my car. "Mark Carter," he said. "You must be Samantha." I nodded, shook his hand quickly, and started walking toward the store. "Just call me Sam. Let's get inside and I'll show you around." The lights buzzed overhead when I unlocked the front door. The night manager wouldn't be in until later, which gave me enough time to go over the basics with Mark. And by basics, I really meant the rules, the ones that kept us alive. "So," Mark said, following me inside, "Thomas mentioned you've been here a while." 3 years, I told him, placing my purse in the locked drawer behind the counter where we all kept our stuff, which means I've lasted longer than about a dozen other employees who didn't take the job seriously. Mark chuckled, clearly thinking I was joking. I wasn't. "Okay, before I train you on the register, there are store rules you need to know first," I said, watching his reaction. "Rule 1. Never work alone, no matter what. If someone calls out sick, you call me or another employee before covering a shift on your own." Mark nodded while fixing his name tag. "Sure, makes sense. Safety in numbers and all that." "This isn't about robberies," I said firmly. 2 years ago, a guy named Jason worked an overnight alone when his partner called off. Cameras showed him fine until 2:17 a.m. Then he looked up at something off screen, walked into the storage room and never came back out. Mark's smile faded. "What? Like he stole something and slipped out the back?" I shook my head. The back door was locked from inside. His stuff was still here. His car was in the lot. He just disappeared. "That's..." Mark started, then shrugged. "Weird coincidence, I guess." I could already tell training him would be tough. Some people just didn't believe until they saw things for themselves. Even then, they tried to explain it away. I'd seen it before with other new hires. "Let me show you the layout," I said, switching approach. I'd work the rules into the night as they came up. I walked Mark through the aisles, showing him where everything was, how to check expiration dates, and how to rotate stock. He seemed sharp enough, asking decent questions about inventory and catching on fast. When we got to the cooler, I handed him a box of energy drinks to restock. "So why's the pay so good here?" Mark asked while lining up the cans. "Most places like this pay minimum wage." "The hours are rough," I said, lying a little. "And the special circumstances." "Special circumstances?" he asked. Before I could answer, a loud scratching came from the direction of the bathroom. It sounded like nails dragging slowly against the inside of the door. Mark turned his head toward the noise. "What's that?" he asked, already stepping away from the cooler. I grabbed his arm. "Rule 5. Never check bathroom noises between 10 at night and 5 in the morning." The scratching grew louder, more harsh. Mark pulled free. "Someone might need help," he said, moving closer. I blocked his way with my body. "Number. Trust me. We don't check bathroom noises. Not ever." "That's ridiculous," Mark said, trying to get past me. "What if a customer fell?" "The bathroom's empty. I checked it before we locked the cooler section. That's standard. There's no one in there." I crossed my arms, standing firm. The scratching suddenly stopped, replaced by the sound of a soft crying that almost sounded like a child. Mark's eyes widened. "You hear that? That sounds like a kid." He tried to push past me, but I held him back with both hands on his chest. "It's not a kid. It's never a kid. That's how it tricks you." For the first time I saw him hesitate. The crying dragged on for 30 more seconds, then cut off just as suddenly as it started. We stood silent for a moment. "What was that?" Mark finally asked. "That," I said, "is why we get paid so well." As training went on, I gave him more of the rules. Rule 2. No alcohol sales after 2 a.m., no matter what, even if a customer begs, threatens, or offers cash. Rule 3. If the lights blink 3 times, head to the back room and wait exactly 7 minutes before coming back. Mark looked doubtful. These sound like urban legends or horror movie stuff. Rule 4, I said, ignoring him, is serious. When customers come in acting off, walking weird, talking flat, or just seeming wrong, they're not themselves anymore. Don't talk to them. Don't look at them. And don't let them touch you. "Not themselves," Mark repeated, laughing. "What's that even supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what I said," I told him flatly. "You'll get it when you see it." As the night went on, I showed him how to clean the coffee station, run inventory, and work the register. Between tasks, I added more rules and store procedures. Each time he looked more dismissive. "So let me get this straight," he said as I explained the 11 p.m. lockup. "Every night at exactly 11, we have to lock the front doors even if there are still shoppers inside." "Yes," I said. "At 10:58 we warn them. Stragglers are walked out the employee exit. And this is real policy? Forcing customers out or locking them in?" "It's not locking them in, it's locking other things out," I said. "And yes, it's policy. Thomas will confirm." Mark shook his head. "This is straight out of a horror movie. Next you'll tell me about full moons or not feeding things after midnight." I sighed. Emma always listened better than this grown man. Even Jacob knew when it was serious. "Look," I said, "I've got 2 kids. Emma and Jacob don't have anyone else. I follow these rules because I want to come home to them. Whether you believe the reasons or not, just follow the procedures. That's all I'm asking." Mark's face softened at the mention of my kids, though the doubt was still there. At 9:45, the bell above the door rang as a customer walked in. I instantly recognized the tall figure in the black hoodie. Mark stiffened beside me, his hand inching toward the phone. "It's okay," I said quietly, moving toward the coffee machine. I poured a large black coffee, set it on the counter, and didn't ring it up. The tall man gave a small nod and took the coffee. I could feel Mark watching as the man walked to the far corner of the store and slowly seemed to fade into the shadows. "What was that?" Mark whispered. "Why didn't you check him out?" "That's William," I said. "He helps with problems around here. The free coffee is just a courtesy." "Helps with what problems?" Mark asked quickly. "The kind that make the rules necessary," I answered. For the rest of our shift, Mark kept learning the register system and stocking shelves. William stayed in his corner, sometimes moving to another spot in the store, but he never spoke a word. When our shift was almost done, the tall man put his empty cup on the counter and walked out without saying anything. "That guy creeps me out," Mark muttered, once William had gone. "And all these rules. I've done night shifts before. Yeah, weird people come in sometimes, but there's nothing supernatural about it. I finished counting my drawer and looked him in the eye. I'm not asking you to believe in ghosts. I'm asking you to follow the procedures that have kept workers alive here. Mark laughed, shaking his head. Right. Disappearances, monsters, and whatever else. Look, I get that you want the night to feel spooky, but I'm too old for ghost stories. As we left and walked to our cars, I felt a heavy knot of worry in my stomach. I had seen this kind of attitude before, and it never ended well. People who ignored the rules didn't usually last at the stop and go. Just be careful, okay? I said when we reached the lot. And remember, never work alone. Sure thing, boss, Mark replied, giving me a mock salute. I'll check for monsters under the cash register, too. I watched him drive away, that knot in my stomach twisting tighter. I needed to pick up Emma and Jacob from my neighbor's house, get them to bed, and try to sleep before another long night tomorrow. As I started my car, I couldn't shake the thought that Mark's training hadn't sunk in. Not because I hadn't tried, but because he wouldn't listen. Some people had to learn the hard way. I only hoped Mark would survive that lesson. 3 days passed since his first shift, and I was already drained from his constant dismissal of everything I told him. Tonight was no better as I watched him carelessly tossing energy drink cans onto the shelf instead of stacking them properly. You'll break one if you keep throwing them, I said, fixing his sloppy work. Mark shrugged. They're cans. They'll be fine. I bit down on a sharper reply. My kid's babysitter had called out sick, and I had to leave Emma and Jacob at my mom's across town. The extra drive left me with barely 4 hours of sleep, and my patience was running out. Let's go over Rule 2 again, I said as I walked toward the liquor section. No alcohol sales after 2 a.m., even if they offer $1 million or threaten to kill me. Mark cut in, mocking my tone before slipping back to his casual one. Yeah, I've heard it 3 times already. I stopped and turned to him. This isn't a joke, Mark. 2 months ago, a guy offered a cashier $500 for whiskey at 2:30 a.m. She took the deal. So? She sold him the bottle. He left. Big deal. He came back 10 minutes later, but it wasn't him anymore. Whatever wore his face broke both her arms before William stepped in. Mark rolled his eyes. There's a normal explanation. Drugs, maybe. People get weird. Cameras glitch. Doesn't mean it's a ghost. The footage showed him walk through a locked door, Mark. Not open it. Walk through it. Glitches happen all the time, he said, brushing me off. I'm not buying horror movie stories just because this place feels strange. The front door chimed and I looked up to see Karen Mitchell come in. She always came at the same time for her lottery tickets. But something was wrong tonight. Very wrong. Karen's body moved with stiff, uneven steps. The worst part was her neck, twisted at an angle no human spine could handle. Her head leaned almost sideways, close to touching her shoulder, yet she kept walking forward. I grabbed Mark's arm hard enough to make him wince. What the? He began. Remember Rule 4, I whispered. When regulars act strange, they're not themselves anymore. Mark stared at her, his smirk fading as the old woman moved further inside. Her head stayed bent, but her eyes rolled in their sockets until they locked right on us without her face turning. That's just Karen, Mark whispered back, but his voice shook. Maybe she has some condition or something. That's not Karen anymore, I said, pulling him toward the back. We need to go. Now. For once, Mark didn't argue. We slipped into the employee area and I closed the door behind us, leaving a small crack to keep watch. What are we doing? Mark whispered, his voice softer than usual. We can't just hide back here. We wait until she leaves, I said. Whatever's inside, Karen will get bored if we don't engage. Through the crack, I watched as Not Karen wandered the aisles with that jerky gait. She picked up items, tilted her head to study them, then set them back in the wrong spots. It felt like forever, but it was only about 5 minutes before she walked out without buying anything. I waited another minute before opening the door. "All clear," I said, stepping into the store. Mark followed, glancing around nervously. "That was weird, but maybe she's sick." "My aunt had—" "Mark!" I cut him off. "Normal people with neck problems can't twist their heads 90 degrees while their bodies face forward. What we saw wasn't human anymore." He didn't answer, and I counted that silence as progress. The rest of the shift passed quietly until 10:55 p.m., when Joseph Rodriguez came in. He was a regular after his late factory shift. "Evening, Sam," he said with a tired smile. "Hi, Joseph, just a heads up, we're locking up in a few minutes," I warned. He nodded, heading to the snack aisle. Mark frowned. "Why are we locking up?" "We're open all night." "Rule 6, I told him. At exactly 11 p.m., we lock the doors, no exceptions. I moved to the front, keys in hand, watching the time on my phone. Joseph was still in the chip aisle, not rushing. "This is ridiculous," Mark muttered. "We can't just lock someone inside." "We've got exactly 2 minutes," I said, without looking away from the clock. "At 10:58 we warn them. At 11 sharp, those doors lock no matter what." I walked to Joseph. "Sir, I need to lock the doors in 2 minutes. If you're not done, I'll let you out through the back exit." Joseph nodded, grabbing a soda and chips. "No problem. I'll be quick." At 10:59, Joseph was at the counter with Mark ringing him up. I stood at the door with the keys ready. "Mark, hurry!" I called. "He's paying, Sam. Give us a second," Mark said, annoyed. The clock flipped to 11 p.m. sharp, and I locked both deadbolts. Through the glass I could see the empty lot with just our cars, but the darkness beyond the edges seemed thicker than usual. "Come on," I told Joseph once he'd grabbed his things. "I'll take you out the back way." Mark watched me with clear disapproval as I guided Joseph through the staff area to our private exit. It was a plain-looking door with extra locks and strange marks etched into the frame, the kind most people never noticed. "Thank you," Joseph said as he stepped outside. I quickly shut the door and locked it tight. When I walked back to the front, Mark stood with his arms crossed, glaring. "You know how crazy that looked, right? Locking the doors at exactly 11 and making that poor guy leave through the back like we're running some shady business." "We are running something hidden," I said simply, "and those doors stay locked until 5 a.m. Mark shook his head. "What's so dangerous about 11 o'clock? In 3 days I've seen nothing except an old woman with a stiff neck." "You don't want to see what happens when the doors aren't locked at 11, I told him. "Trust me." The rest of the night stayed quiet. Mark cleaned up the coffee area while I refilled the cigarettes behind the counter. Around 1 a.m., Mark grabbed some supplies and headed to the closet. I was checking stock on my tablet when I heard him call out from across the store. "Hey, Sam, do you hear that?" I looked up and saw him standing by the supply closet, his head turned toward the door. I walked over quickly, already knowing what sound he meant. A faint crying like a child in pain came from behind the closet door. "It sounds like a kid," Mark said, reaching for the handle. "Maybe one got locked in there." I rushed to stop him, but before I could, a tall figure appeared silently behind him. William had shown up out of nowhere, as he always did. "Don't," William said softly. Mark jumped and nearly collided with me, his face pale as he stared at William. "Jesus Christ," he gasped. "Where did you come from?" William didn't reply. He never really did. Instead, he put one hand against the closet door, and the crying stopped instantly. "Mark, this is William," I explained, watching Mark's face slowly regain color. I told you about him on your first night. He protects us. Protects us from what? Mark asked, his voice small. William turned his hooded head slightly toward him. His face stayed hidden. From what exists beyond the rules, he said in a deep, quiet tone. It was the longest sentence I had ever heard from him. Then he pulled his hand back from the door and walked off to his usual corner. Mark stared after him, then looked at me. For once, he didn't look smug. What the hell is going on here, Sam? He asked. I've been trying to tell you, I said. The rules aren't just superstition. They're survival. Mark glanced back at the now silent supply closet. And if I had opened that door? I didn't answer right away, remembering the worker 2 years ago who had done just that. They never found enough of him to bury. Let's just say you wouldn't be finishing your shift, I finally said, and I'd be training someone else tomorrow. Mark was quieter after that. He still didn't fully believe, I could tell. But at least he was thinking now. Sometimes getting someone to question their disbelief was enough. As the shift ended and the morning crew came in, I gathered my things and headed out with Mark following behind. Sam, he said when we reached our cars, that thing with William tonight, I can't explain that. You don't need to explain it, I told him. You just need to respect it. But that crying in the closet, it wasn't a child. It's never a child, I finished for him. Mark nodded slowly. I'll see you tomorrow night then. I watched him drive off, hoping tonight's events had finally gotten through. The rules kept us alive, but only if we followed them. And I had the feeling Mark was still deciding whether to believe. A week passed since the night with William in the closet. I hoped that would have changed Mark's attitude, but instead, he was more stubborn than ever. For a short time he seemed worried, but now he was acting careless again. That scared me more than his ignorance. Tuesday night we worked another shift at the Stop and Go. I was stocking candy while Mark sat at the register with his phone and a sports magazine. The clock on the wall showed 10:55 p.m. Mark, I called. It's almost 11. Time to lock up. He barely looked up. Yeah, in a minute. I left the candy and walked to the front. Not in a minute. Now. We need to warn customers and have the doors locked sharp by 11. Relax, Sam. There's nobody even here. He flipped his magazine. That's not the point. The doors lock at 11 whether the store is empty or not. I moved to the entrance, keys ready. The seconds ticked by as I kept watch. The lot was empty except our cars, but it didn't matter. Rules were rules, and this one was the most important. Mark, help me check the store, I said firmly. He sighed and tossed his phone down. Fine, I'll check the back aisles. At 10:59 I stood by the front doors, eyes on my phone clock. Mark was supposed to be sweeping the aisles, but I couldn't see him anywhere. The time clicked to 11 o'clock. I grabbed the locks, but hesitated. Mark, I called. You done checking? Silence. I should have locked the doors right then, but I needed to know if he'd found someone. Mark, I called again. Finally his voice came from the back. Yeah, all clear. I turned back to the doors, but my phone now read 11:01. My stomach tightened. I rushed to lock both deadbolts. 11:02. Mark strolled up, casual as ever. Told you nobody was back there. The doors had to be locked at 11, I snapped. It's 11:03. So, a couple minutes late. Big deal. He shrugged. I followed him back to the counter, anger mixing with fear. It is a big deal, Mark. Do you even realize what can happen in 3 minutes? Let me guess. Demons come in and eat our souls. He rolled his eyes. Last year, I said quietly, a girl named Rebecca was 15 minutes late locking up. They found her body with the skin turned inside out. His grin faltered before he forced a laugh. Come on. Inside out? That's impossible. I saw the photos, I told him. Thomas showed us all as a warning. I wasn't lying. Those pictures haunted my nightmares for weeks. Whatever came through those doors didn't just kill her, it unmade her. Something in my voice made him pause. He glanced at the doors, locked tight now, and swallowed hard. You're serious, he muttered, not quite asking. Dead serious. 3 minutes late is 3 minutes too long. Mark didn't argue again that night, but I caught him looking at the doors whenever the wind rattled the glass. Thursday started off like any other shift. Customers came and went until midnight, then the place grew quiet. Mark was behaving better than usual, actually following the rules. I hoped Rebecca's story had stuck. Then, at 1:30 a.m., the lights went out. Not just in the store, everything. The signs outside, the street lamps, even the backup lights failed. We were left in complete darkness. Power outage, Mark said near the counter. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. This isn't normal, I whispered. The generator should have kicked in. As my eyes adjusted, I saw Mark's outline at the window. Looks like the whole block's out, he said. Get away from the windows, I ordered. Why? He asked just before a loud bang cut him off. Something slammed into the glass doors from outside, then another hit and another until it sounded like bodies throwing themselves at the entrance. Mark, back up! I grabbed his arm and pulled him away just as my light caught shapes pressed against the glass. Their faces were twisted, stretched in impossible ways. What the hell? Mark gasped, staring. I yanked him back harder, shielding his view. Don't look at them. Eyes down, always. The pounding grew louder, the glass shaking in its frame. My hand trembled as the beam lit their warped figures. What are they? Mark whispered, his bravado gone. I don't know, I admitted, and I don't want to. Then I noticed someone moving from the back. A tall figure stepped calmly into view. William. I hadn't seen him arrive, but he was there, as always, when we needed him. He walked past us without a word and went to the doors. The figures outside scattered instantly, fleeing into the dark. The banging stopped. Seconds later, the power returned. The lights flickered back on, the fridge unit started humming again, and the register rebooted with a string of beeps. It was like nothing had ever gone wrong. William stood by the doors for another moment before heading back to his corner. He didn't say a word or look our way, but we all understood. He'd kept us safe. Mark leaned on the counter, looking pale. What just happened? He whispered. That's why we locked the doors at 11, I explained quietly. For the rest of the shift, Mark was on edge. He flinched at every sound and kept sneaking glances toward William's corner, like checking to be sure he was still there. When morning came and our replacements walked in, Mark almost bolted to his car. I caught him outside. You okay? He breathed in deep. I don't know what that was. It was what I've been trying to warn you about, I told him. The rules exist for a reason. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that now. But then he hesitated, turning his eyes back to the store. Those things at the window, they couldn't have been real, right? Probably just some kids fooling around and a power outage. That happened sometimes. I stared at him in disbelief. After all he'd seen, he was still trying to explain it away. Mark, those weren't teenagers. And William didn't just randomly show up right when we needed him. I'm not saying it wasn't strange, he said quickly. It was definitely creepy, but outages happen. People bang on doors sometimes. I let it drop. Some people will never believe, no matter what they witness. Just promise me you'll keep the rules, even if you don't believe why they're there. "Sure," he replied, but I could tell he was only saying it for me. Sunday afternoon, while I was helping Emma with her science project, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Can I cover your Monday night shift? Need extra hours." My chest tightened. I texted back, frowning. "You mean with Ashley?" Ashley was the newest worker, still training, but learning quick. His reply came fast. "No, just me." Ashley called in sick. My stomach dropped. I immediately called Mark instead of texting, but he didn't pick up. I tried again. Still no answer. I sent another text. "Never work alone." "Wait, I'll find someone to cover with you." The typing dots appeared on the screen. His reply came, "No one follows those rules when you're not here. Nothing ever happens." I called again. Silence. I texted Thomas to explain what was happening. He said he'd handle it, but I couldn't shake the worry. I typed back to Mark, "Don't work alone, I'm serious, it's dangerous." More dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Finally, "Relax, Sam, I'll be fine. See you Tuesday." I stared at my phone, dread sinking deep. Emma looked up from her project, noticing. "Mom, is everything okay?" I forced a smile for her. "Yeah, honey, just work stuff." But it wasn't okay. Mark was about to break the most important rule, and I couldn't stop him. I pushed open the stop-and-go doors at 5:55 a.m., Tuesday morning, 5 minutes early for my shift. The overhead lights were flickering unevenly. Something was off. The door shouldn't have been unlocked yet. Mark should have been ready to hand me the register. "Mark!" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty store. Silence. The quiet pressed against my ears. I stepped inside carefully. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Shelves full, coffee machine buzzing, register closed. But Mark wasn't at the counter. "Mark, you here?" I tried again, moving further in. That's when I noticed the drops on the floor. Dark liquid, almost black under the flickering lights, leading from the counter toward the bathroom. My stomach twisted. I followed the line with my eyes, not my feet. The bathroom door was shut. I grabbed my phone and dialed Thomas, straight to voicemail. "Thomas, it's Sam. Something's wrong at the store. Mark's missing, the door was unlocked, and there's something on the floor. I'm leaving now, following protocol." My hand shook as I ended the call. The rule was clear. If anything seemed off, leave at once and call management. No exceptions. I backed away toward the entrance, eyes locked on the bathroom door. The trail glistened under the erratic lights. I didn't want to think what it was, but my mind filled it in anyway. Near the exit, the lights flickered harder, then steadied. In that moment I saw it. The liquid wasn't black. It was deep, unmistakable red. I bolted, running for my car, fumbling with the keys until I finally unlocked it. Once inside, I locked the doors and started the engine, my hands trembling. Pulling out of the lot, I glanced in the mirror. The store light still flashed, and for just a second, I thought I saw a tall figure in the doorway. But when I looked back, nothing. The 15-minute drive home stretched like hours. My head spun with awful possibilities. Mark had broken the one rule: never work alone. Now he was paying the price. Emma and Jacob were already at the table when I walked in. Mrs. Patel from next door had stayed overnight to watch them. "Mom!" Jacob jumped up, cereal still dripping from his chin. "You're home early." Emma's eyes narrowed. She sensed something was wrong. Did something happen at work? Mrs. Patel, pouring juice, looked at me curiously. I forced calm. "There was a problem at the store," I said. "I had to leave early." "What kind of problem?" Emma pressed. I smiled weakly. "Just some maintenance." Nothing to worry about. Mrs. Patel got her things ready, and I walked her to the door. "Everything okay, Samantha?" You look pale, she asked softly. I'm fine, I lied, just tired. Thank you for watching them. After she left, I fixed coffee with shaking hands and sat at the table. Jacob happily talked about a dream he had, but Emma just studied me carefully. Mom, you're acting weird, she said at last. Did something scary happen? I looked at her, wondering how much I should share. She had always been sharp, picking up things other kids wouldn't. I'm just worried about a coworker, I admitted. He might be in trouble. The one who doesn't believe in the rules, she asked. I blinked. I didn't even remember telling her that. Yes, that one. Emma nodded, serious. You always say rules keep us safe. They do, I agreed, taking her hand. That's why it's so important to follow them. The morning dragged. I called Thomas 3 more times, no answer. I tried to focus on the kids, helping with homework, making lunch, pretending things were normal, but I kept checking my phone. By afternoon, Jacob was buried in a video game while Emma sat next to me with a book. At 3:42 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered instantly. Hello? Is this Samantha Wilson? A man's voice asked. Yes. This is Detective Ryan Bennett with the Riverdale Police Department. I understand you work at the Stop and Go on Maple Street. My throat tightened. Yes. I need to ask you questions about your coworker, Mark Carter. Could you come to the station this afternoon? I glanced at Emma, who looked up. I have my children with me. You please tell me what this is about first. There was a pause. Miss Wilson, I'm sorry. Mr. Carter's body was found behind the store this morning. Since you were scheduled to relieve him, we need to speak with you. The room spun. I held onto the couch. His body? I whispered. Yes. I'm very sorry to inform you this way. Could you come by at 5 p.m.? We can arrange someone to watch your kids if needed. No. I have a neighbor who can stay. I'll come. When the call ended, I sat frozen, phone still in hand. Emma put her book down and scooted close. Mom, what happened? She asked. I looked at her, searching for gentle words. The coworker I was worried about. Something bad happened. Her eyes widened. Is he dead? She asked directly. I slowly nodded. Yes, honey, he is. Emma stayed quiet for a little while. Because he didn't follow the rules. I think so, I whispered back. Mrs. Patel agreed to stay with the kids again so I could go to the police station. Before leaving, I hugged Emma and Jacob tightly, promising them I'd be home soon. Emma hugged me harder than usual, like she understood the risk I faced every night at work. When I got to the police station, it was crowded and busy. An officer led me into a small interview room where Detective Bennett was waiting with a notepad. Miss Wilson, thank you for coming in, he said, motioning to the chair across from him. I understand you found the store in an unusual state this morning. I sat down, keeping my hands folded in my lap to stop them from shaking. Yes, the doors were unlocked when I arrived, and Mark wasn't there. There were drops on the floor, red drops. And you called your manager and left right away. Yes, that's our rule if something seems off. Detective Bennett nodded and jotted something down. Can you tell me about your last contact with Mark Carter? I told him about the text messages, how Mark had refused my warnings and wanted to work alone. And why exactly were you so worried about him being alone? Bennett asked. Because it's against the store rules. The first rule is to never work alone, especially at night. Why is that rule so important? I hesitated, knowing how strange it would sound. There have been incidents at the store. People who broke the rules either vanished or ended up dead. Bennett's face stayed calm, but I saw doubt in his eyes. What kind of incidents? 2 years ago, an employee named Jason disappeared while working a solo overnight shift. Last year, A girl named Rebecca was found dead after not locking the doors at 11 p.m. There are rules we follow to stay alive. I took a deep breath and listed them. Never work alone. No alcohol sales after 2 a.m. Don't check bathroom noises between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. If regular customers start acting strange, it means they're not themselves. If lights flicker 3 times, go to the back room and wait for 7 minutes, and always lock the doors at exactly 11 p.m. No exceptions. As I explained, Bennett's expression went from calm to skeptical. Miss Wilson, these sound like superstitions, not safety procedures. They're not superstitions, I said firmly. They keep us alive. Did Mark Carter believe in these rules? No. He thought they were nonsense, like something out of a horror movie. Bennett wrote more notes. Miss Wilson, I need to tell you how Mark Carter died. His body was found behind the store, cut apart. His limbs and head were separated from his torso. I shut my eyes, sick to my stomach. I told him not to work alone. Do you know anyone who might have wanted to hurt Mr. Carter? I shook my head. No, Mark was new. He'd only been at the store for 2 weeks. And these rules you mentioned, are they official policy? Yes, Thomas Jones, our manager, enforces them strictly. Bennett wrote again. We'll speak with Mr. Jones, too. In the meantime, where were you? Between midnight and 5 a.m. last night. I was home with my kids. My neighbor, Mrs. Patel, stayed over while I slept. She can confirm it. The detective nodded. We'll check. One last question. The store's security cameras, do they record all the time? Yes, Thomas has all the footage. Thank you for your time, Miss Wilson. We'll contact you if we need more answers. As I stood, Bennett added, Don't discuss Mr. Carter's death details with others while we investigate. I nodded and left. Mark's death weighed heavily on me. I had tried to warn him. I really had. The next morning, Thomas Jones called at 9 a.m. Sam, I need you at the store. The police are going over the footage from Monday night. An hour later, I was in Thomas's office with Detective Bennett and another officer. Thomas looked grim as he pulled up the footage. The video showed Mark in the store alone around 10:30 p.m. Monday night. He was reading a magazine at the counter, checking his phone now and then. At 10:55 p.m., he looked at the clock, but never moved to lock the doors. 11 p.m. passed and the doors stayed open. At 11:17 p.m., a hooded person appeared outside. Mark looked up as they entered. They spoke, though the video had no sound. Mark seemed calm, even smiling while ringing up their items. At 11:32 p.m., the bathroom door opened by itself. Mark noticed and looked confused. The hooded person pointed toward the bathroom. Mark shook his head, but the person motioned again. A moment later, noises must have come from inside, because Mark snapped his head toward the door. The hooded figure walked over, and after a pause, Mark followed. Both went into the bathroom. The door closed. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then the light started to flicker. The camera glitched, breaking into static before shutting off completely. When it came back at 12:17 a.m., the store was empty. The bathroom door was closed. Dark drops led from the bathroom to the back door. Thomas stopped the footage. Detective Bennett looked tense. "Can you identify the hooded figure?" he asked Thomas. "No, that wasn't William, if that's what you're thinking," Thomas said. "William never buys things and he never goes into the bathroom." Bennett turned to me. "Who's William?" "He helps with problems at the store," I said. "He's tall, wears a black hoodie, but he protects us." "He wouldn't hurt Mark." Bennett didn't look sure. "We'll need to question this William." "Good luck with that," Thomas muttered. After the police left, Thomas asked me to stay. He looked older, more tired than ever. "You followed the rules, Sam. That's why you lived." Mark didn't. He sighed. I've already hired someone new. Can you start again tomorrow? So soon? I asked, surprised at how quickly Mark was replaced. The store can't be short-staffed, not even one night. Thomas handed me a file. Her name's Ashley Peterson, 26. Good references. She starts tomorrow night. I took the file, feeling numb. And what do I tell her about Mark? The truth, Thomas said simply. The rules keep you alive. Breaking them gets you killed. I nodded, thinking of Emma and Jacob waiting at home. I needed this job. The pay was too good, especially as a single mother. But I also knew now that working at the Stop and Go was bigger than just a paycheck. The rules weren't only for us. They kept everyone safe. I'll be here, I said, and I'll make sure Ashley knows the rules better than Mark did. Thomas nodded, looking relieved. Good. I knew you'd handle it. Driving home, I couldn't stop thinking of Mark's last moments. Did he realize his mistake too late? Did he finally believe in the rules as whatever came through that bathroom door tore him apart? I would never know. All I could do was make sure the next worker understood what was at stake and pray they believed me before it was too late. 2 weeks had passed since I'd first seen those red drops on the floor. 2 weeks since Detective Bennett showed me the video of Mark walking into that bathroom. 2 weeks since they found what was left of him behind the store. I still had nightmares. Not about his cut-up body, thank God I never saw that, but about what might have stepped through that bathroom door. What had Mark seen in those missing minutes? Tonight was my third shift training Ashley Peterson. Mark's job had already been filled. She stood beside me at the counter, carefully, giving change to a customer who bought cigarettes and a lottery ticket. Her movements were steady and exact, nothing like Mark's careless way. Have a good night, Ashley said as the customer left. The door chimed as it closed. I glanced at the clock. 9:47 p.m. Still plenty of time before the 11 p.m. lockdown. You're doing really well, I told her. Much better than... I stopped myself. Then Mark, Ashley said, finishing for me. She pushed a piece of dark hair behind her ear. It's okay. Thomas told me what happened to him. I nodded, glad I didn't have to avoid the subject. Did he tell you everything? He said Mark broke the rules. He worked alone. And then... She paused. Something got him. That's the short version, I admitted. The main thing is the rules keep us alive. All of them. Unlike Mark, Ashley had taken the rules seriously from the start. When I explained never working alone, she nodded firmly. When I told her about locking the doors at 11 p.m., she asked how to do it instead of questioning why. When I explained the bathroom noises, she simply asked what to do if she heard them. It was such a relief. Let's restock the cooler, I suggested, then I'll show you the nightly inventory report. We worked together, putting energy drinks and sodas in neat rows. Ashley was quiet but focused, asking only what she needed to. At 10:30 p.m., we went to the back office so I could show her the inventory system. I logged in and opened the program. This is pretty simple, I explained. You enter the counts from your sheets, and the system figures out what we need to order. Ashley leaned over my shoulder, watching me click through the screens. What if the numbers don't match? Good question. If they don't, you write it here. I pointed at a field. Thomas checks every report in the morning. A loud bang cut us off. Both of us jumped, turning to face the office door. What was that? Ashley whispered. I listened hard. Another bang followed, along with a rattling sound. It was coming from the front of the store. Stay here, I said, standing up. I'll check it out. I walked slowly into the main store area. At first, everything looked normal, but then I noticed the bathroom door shaking in its frame. The rattling got harsher, like someone, or something, was trying to push its way out. I told Ashley to stay behind, but she followed me anyway. She froze a few feet back, her eyes wide with fear. "Is someone in there?" she whispered. I shook my head. No. The bathroom was empty when we checked earlier. I glanced at the clock. 10:42 p.m. Rule 5. Never investigate bathroom noises between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. The door rattled harder, the hinges groaning as though they might snap. A low, guttural sound came from inside. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. Ashley stepped back, her hands trembling. "Shouldn't we do something?" "Yes," I said, turning away. "We keep working." I walked calmly to the register and began sorting receipt rolls, pretending nothing unusual was happening. After a pause, Ashley joined me, though her hand shook while she fixed the candy display. The rattling continued, harder now, the door bulging as if something heavy pressed against it. "How can you be so calm?" Ashley whispered. "Practice," I said, "and knowing that if we follow the rules, we'll be okay." The front door chimed and we both looked up. William walked in, dressed in a black hoodie. He moved silently toward the coffee station as he always did. I left the register and fixed his usual order. Black, no sugar. As I handed it to him, I lowered my voice. "We could use some help," I said, nodding toward the bathroom. William's fingers brushed mine when he took the cup. His skin felt strangely cool. He gave one nod, then walked to the rattling door. Ashley's eyes grew wider as William pressed his hand flat on the wood. The rattling stopped instantly. The silence was heavy, complete. William opened the bathroom door and stepped inside, shutting it behind him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened again, and William walked back out. He set his cup on the counter as he passed, gave me a small nod, and left the store. Ashley stared at the bathroom door, which was now still. "What did he do?" she asked. "I don't know exactly," I said. "But William helps with problems. That's his job." Ashley looked at me, awe and fear mixed in her face. "Is he human?" I paused. "I don't think so. Not fully." She nodded slowly, surprisingly calm. "And the thing in the bathroom?" "Also not human," I said. "That's all you need to know." We finished our tasks in silence. At 10:55 p.m., I reminded Ashley of the lockdown procedure. Together we checked the store for customers, then I locked both deadbolts at exactly 11 o'clock. "Perfect timing," she said, glancing at her watch. "Always," I replied. 3 minutes late is 3 minutes too many." The rest of the night passed quietly. We cleaned, restocked, and ran reports. Ashley asked smart questions and listened closely to my instructions. By 2 a.m., I felt sure she would survive working at the stop and go. Then the front door opened. I looked up, confused. The doors were locked. Nobody should have been able to come inside. Thomas Jones stood at the entrance, keys in hand. He didn't usually visit overnight. He handled business in the day. "Evening, Sam," he said, nodding. "Ashley." He looked tired, with deeper lines around his eyes. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "I need to talk to you privately," he said. "Ashley, can you watch the front for a bit?" Ashley nodded. "Of course, mister." Jones Thomas led me into the office and shut the door. He sat behind the desk, motioning for me to sit. "You've done well with Ashley," he said. "She's learning quickly." "She listens," I replied, "unlike Mark." Thomas nodded, his face grim. "Mark's death was sad, but not surprising. Some people won't believe until it's too late." He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "Sam, you've been here 3 years now. You followed the rules, trained others, and survived. That's more than most." "I've got kids to go home to," I said. "The rules keep me alive for them." "Yes, they do." Thomas leaned forward, his face serious. But now it's time you understand why the rules exist. He opened the folder, showing me photographs, diagrams, and old symbols. The Stop and Go isn't just a store, he said. It stands on a weak point between dimensions, a thin place in reality. I stared at him, stunned. Part of me had always guessed something like this, but hearing it confirmed made my chest tighten. The rules don't just keep you safe, Thomas said. They keep what's on the other side from getting through. The 11 p.m. lockdown, it's because the barrier is weakest then. The bathroom noises, that's something trying to force an opening. The customers who don't act like themselves, they've been touched by what's beyond. I thought of Karen Mitchell, her neck bent at an impossible angle and the figures pressing against the glass during the blackout. And William? I asked. Thomas's tone softened. William isn't human. He's a guardian. Others like him exist, but most don't care about our world. William is different. He protects us, I said. He protects the barrier, Thomas corrected. We're just lucky to be on this side of it. I took a deep breath, trying to absorb it. Why tell me this now? Because it's getting worse, Thomas said. The events are growing. The things on the other side are pushing harder. We need employees who know what they're really guarding. Does Ashley know? Thomas shook his head. Not yet. You first. You've earned it. He closed the folder and handed it to me. Take it. Study it. The more you know, the better your odds. I accepted the folder. Thank you for trusting me. You've proven yourself, Thomas said, standing. Now let's get back before Ashley starts wondering. When we returned, Ashley was helping a truck driver find energy drinks. Thomas nodded to us both, then left, the bell chiming as he went out. Everything okay? Ashley asked once the driver had gone. Yeah, I said, sliding the folder into my bag. Just a performance review. The night stayed quiet after that. At 3:45 a.m., Ashley took her break. At 4 o'clock, the bell chimed again as another truck driver came in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, unshaven, with bloodshot eyes. Pack of Marlboros and a fifth of vodka, he said, tossing a 20 on the counter. Ashley returned from break and went to grab the cigarettes while I handled the cash. Sorry, sir, I said. We can't sell alcohol after 2 a.m. store policy. His face darkened. It's just a bottle of vodka. No one will know. I'm sorry, I said again, firm. Cigarettes, yes. Vodka, no. This is crap, he growled. I've been driving all night. I need something to help me relax at the motel. We have energy drinks, Ashley offered. Or coffee. The man slammed his fist on the counter. I don't want coffee. I want vodka. I stepped in front of Ashley, keeping calm. Sir, it's the law. We can't sell it. It wasn't really the law in our state, but it was simpler than telling the truth. The law? He sneered. You think I care about that? As he spoke, his face began to change. The skin around his mouth stretched, showing far too many teeth. His bloodshot eyes began leaking a dark, thick fluid. Give me the vodka, he said, his voice lower now, warped. Now. I pulled Ashley back from the counter. Sir, I need you to leave. The man, or the thing in him, leaned forward. His face twisted in ways no human face could. The air filled with the stench of rot mixed with chemicals. You know what I am, it growled. You know what I need. I kept backing away, pulling Ashley with me. We can't help you. Leave. It snarled, the sound animal and broken, its arms stretched unnaturally long, fingers sharp like claws. The bottle, it hissed. Give me the bottle. I remembered Rule 6. If the lights flicker 3 times, go to the back and wait 7 minutes. The lights weren't flickering, but the idea was the same. Retreat. Ashley, I whispered. When I say run, get to the back room. Lock it. Wait 7 minutes, no matter what. She nodded, pale but steady. The creature started climbing the counter, its limbs jerking like tangled wires. "Run!" I shouted, shoving Ashley toward the back while I ran the other way, pulling its attention. It turned, mouth opening far too wide, and came after me. I backed up, using aisles to keep space between us. "You can't have it," I said. "You don't belong here." "Go back." The creature let out a sound like laughter mixed with screaming. It lunged forward, knocking over displays as it chased me. I kept moving, pulling it farther from the back room. Its movements grew faster, more violent. Its body distorted, the man's face breaking into something unrecognizable. Then suddenly it stopped. Its head twisted at a sharp angle, as though listening to something unseen. Fear flickered across its warped face. It backed toward the door, eyes darting. Without a word, it bolted outside, the bell chiming cheerfully as it left. I stood frozen for a moment before hurrying to the back room. I knocked 3 times. Ashley opened the door, her face pale but calm. "Is it gone?" "Yes," I said. "It's gone." "What was it?" she asked, voice steady even now. "Something not from our world," I said. "Something the rules hold back most of the time." Ashley breathed deeply. "I thought Mark was just being stubborn when he wouldn't believe you. I didn't get how anyone could doubt you. But that was real." "I know," I said gently. "It's a lot to take in." She looked into my eyes. "I believe everything now," she whispered. "Every single rule, every warning, all of it." I nodded, relieved. Ashley would survive. She finally understood what was at stake. "Good," I said, "because believing is what keeps us alive." As dawn came closer and our shift neared its end, I thought of the folder Thomas gave me, the weak point between dimensions, and William, the guardian who stood watch. I thought about my kids, Emma and Jacob, sleeping safely at home, not knowing what their mom faced every night at work. I also thought about Mark, who hadn't believed until it was too late. Ashley would be different. She would make it, and so would I. A month after finding out the truth about the stop and go, I had settled into a new routine. The folder Thomas gave me had become part of my life. I studied it carefully, learning about the weak spots between worlds, the strange things that tried to come through, and the symbols that helped keep them out. Knowing the facts didn't make the job less scary, but it helped me understand the danger. Ashley proved to be a quick learner and a solid partner. Unlike Mark, she followed the rules without argument, since she had already seen what happened if you broke them. We had gotten into an easy rhythm during our shifts, working around each other with the skill of people who knew what was at stake. Tuesday night started like many others. The store stayed busy until about 10, then traffic slowed down. Ashley was restocking candy while I counted the register, getting ready for the 11 p.m. lockdown. "How are Emma and Jacob?" Ashley asked, lining up chocolate bars neatly. "Good," I said, putting bills into their spots. Emma got an A on her science project. Jacob lost another tooth. "That's great," Ashley said. "Emma's the one who realized something was wrong with Mark before you did, right?" I nodded, remembering how sharp my daughter was. "She notices things. Sometimes I think she knows more about this place than I've told her." The clock read 10:56. I finished the register and walked to the front doors, looking outside for last-minute customers. The lot was empty except for our 2 cars. "Almost time," I called to Ashley. "Check the back aisles." She nodded and went around the chips. I pulled out my keys, ready for the nightly lockup. At 10:58 the lights went out. Not just the stores, everything. The street lights, the neon sign, even the glow from the coolers. It was pitch black. I waited for the emergency lights, but they never came on. "Sam." Ashley's voice came from the dark, tight with fear. "Stay where you are," I called, pulling out my phone. The screen lit a small blue glow that barely cut through the dark. I checked the time. 10:59. 1 minute to lockdown. I turned on my flashlight and aimed it at the front doors. The light looked weak in the heavy dark. "What's happening?" Ashley had come back, her phone shining too. "I don't know, but we need to lock the doors now." Then came the sound of scratching from the bathroom. I knew that sound, it always meant trouble. But then another scratching started from the supply closet. "They're trying to come through in more than one place," I said, hurrying to the doors. Ashley's light swept the glass doors and froze. "Sam," she whispered, "look." Outside, barely visible, stood shapes. Not one or two, but many, moving slightly in the dark. They pressed against the glass, eyes glowing like animals caught in headlights. "Help me," I said, pushing the key into the first lock. The shapes pressed harder, smearing the glass with something wet. Ashley grabbed her own key with shaking hands. I turned mine just as my watch beeped. 11 o'clock sharp. Her lock clicked into place. The shapes froze. Then they all started pounding the doors at once. The glass shook. A wailing noise rose outside, not human, not animal. It made my teeth ache. "What do we do?" Ashley cried, backing up. Then a tall figure appeared beside us. I almost screamed until I saw the black hoodie. "William!" Relief washed over me. He nodded and pointed to the back. "Go," he said quietly. We didn't argue. We hurried toward the back, flashlights leading the way. The scratching sounds were louder now. The doors to both the bathroom and the supply closet were bulging like something big was trying to push through. William followed, placing his hand on each door as we passed. The sounds faded each time he touched them. I opened the back room door, expecting more dark. Instead, a warm glow lit the space. Thomas stood inside, lanterns around him. He looked calm, not surprised at all. "Right on time," he said, motioning us in. William closed the door behind us. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice steady for Ashley. "This is your final test," Thomas said. "They're trying to break through in many places." A huge crash sounded in the store, glass shattering. Ashley jumped. "The doors—" "William reinforced them," Thomas said. "They'll hold. They'll hold." He opened a metal cabinet I hadn't seen before, filled with lanterns, water, and strange weapons. He handed each of us one. Ashley held hers, confused. It looked like a flashlight, but carved with the same symbols I'd seen in the folder. "Protection," Thomas explained. "Point and press." "It won't kill them, but it will push them back." Screams echoed from outside, making my skin crawl. William tilted his head, listening. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Why now?" "Because you're ready," Thomas said. "You've shown you can follow the rules and believe without proof. Now you must see what you're guarding." He sat down, waving at us to sit. "You've wondered why this job pays so well. Why a simple clerk makes double. Now you know. You're not clerks. You're guards, protectors. The last defense between here and what lies beyond another crash, closer." "They're testing the bathroom," William said. "Then the supply closet. Then the ceiling." "How long will this last?" Ashley asked, clutching her tool. "Until dawn," Thomas said. "The sun strengthens the barrier." I thought of Emma and Jacob at home, safe with Mrs. Patel next door. I thought about the town, Riverdale, full of people with no clue what happened here. "If we fail?" I asked. "Then they'll spread," Thomas said. "First Riverdale, then everywhere." A ripping sound came from outside, loud like cloth tearing, but on a massive scale. William stepped back from the door. "The ceiling," he said. "They're coming through above." Thomas stood. "This is where you choose," he said. "Ashley, you can leave now. William will get you out. Or you can stay and fight. But if you leave, don't return. I looked at my tool, then at Ashley. Her face was pale but set. I'm staying, she said firmly. I thought of my children again, of their future. I'm staying too. Thomas nodded, pride in his eyes. Good. Remember the rules. They exist for a reason. The ceiling above the store crashed down with screams and the stench of rot mixed with burning plastic. They're through, William said, moving. Thomas handed us each a lantern. Stay together. Aim for their centers. Don't look in their eyes. William opened the door. The store had turned into a war zone. Shapes moved in the dark, shifting forms, unable to settle. The ceiling above no longer showed the night sky, but something else, a darkness that hurt to look at. I lifted my tool, remembering Thomas's notes. They couldn't hold shape without anchoring to something. If we stopped that, they'd be forced back. For hours, we fought. William moved quick, stopping the biggest ones before they formed. Thomas gave orders like someone who had done this forever. Ashley and I worked as a team, pushing back anything that got too close. It was terrifying, exhausting, but somehow we held out until dawn. The gray light spread, and slowly, the things began to vanish. The rips closed, the strange dark fading away. By 6 a.m., it was over. The store was wrecked, broken glass, shelves down, stock everywhere. But the breach had been stopped. Thomas looked around. Could have been worse, he said. Ashley sank to the floor, shocked but alive. William was already gone, disappearing as he often did. What now? I asked, my voice hoarse from shouting all night. Now? Thomas almost smiled. Now you go home. Rest. Be back tonight. The store will be ready. Just like that? Ashley asked, still stunned. We almost died. That's the job, Thomas said. It's what you agreed to. I helped Ashley up. We were dirty, covered in a foul mess I didn't want to name, but alive. I need to call home, I said. Check on Emma and Jacob. Use my office, Thomas said. Those phones still work. Ashley and I picked our way through the damage to the office. I called Mrs. Patel. She said the kids were fine, still asleep. They had no idea what I'd just gone through, and that was how it should be. I hung up and looked at Ashley. You okay? She nodded slowly. I think so. It's just a lot. It gets easier, I said, though I wasn't sure it was true. But what we do matters. I know, she said. I just never thought I'd be guarding a doorway to another world when I applied here. I almost laughed at how strange it sounded. The benefits are good, though. True, she said, managing a small smile. When we left the office, Thomas was already directing a cleanup crew. People in plain uniforms worked quickly, clearing debris, replacing what was broken, restoring the store. Go home, Thomas said. Be back by 10. We'll be ready. Ashley and I walked out into the morning sun, feeling its warmth. That was when I knew my job had changed. I wasn't just a clerk making good money anymore. I was someone protecting my world from the things trying to break in for Emma and Jacob. I would do it. I would come back night after night, follow the rules, and keep everything safe. I couldn't even think about what would happen if I didn't. I got into my car and saw Ashley doing the same. We would both come back ready for another shift, keeping the dangers out. This was our choice now. This was our job.